Wrenching too much. Voice up because it really hurts. He found the one bag of socket kit. I found the bag, guys. It's all right.
Your audio's here, but I'm trying to pull your video up.
We're trying to pull the video up because, you know, things are things, and you know how technology is, and I can't help.
Oh, we got you.
There we go. So, thanks for tuning in today. Another episode of In a World of Trying to Find My Stuff in Piles. Just looking for the proper link sockets or cap heads. I want some cap heads to mount my links. It's never a good idea to have big old hardware hanging out. Major hardware. These look about right. Right enough. So what are y'all up to today besides evidently not working? I'm pretty sure y'all should be at work right now. But I won't tell if you don't tell. That's right. What is also right is I can't find this hole. As we've said before, wrong hole, fool. Got to make sure that I get this right. Come on now. Tell you, putting these rails together in the wrong order doesn't make life easy. So I'm just gonna take this rear standoff apart. Give ourselves a little action. Everybody needs a little action in their life. Then we can bolt it back together. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think. So let me know in the comments, what are you working on lately? I got the Bastard Junior done, finally. So I figured the next step would be to work on this project that I've had on the bench for like a year and a half. But here is the Bastard Junior. Capper axles, it needs more weight up front. Running a Revolver Team Spec, teeny little guy with a TGH210 transmission. It's got the dig built into it, so I did not install dig gears into the axles themselves, but all kinds of gear down. And if I have enough time today, I'm going to go out and wheel it, but this thing has been a whole lot of fun. Finally got it done. It's fun to drive. The geometry isn't exactly where I'd like it, but we can adjust that as time goes on. There we go, there's the hole. Seems like that's what she said joke. Just a-waiting. Just a-waiting. Maybe y'all can make that in the comment. There we go, there we go. One right there. Aha, and I found these little guys. What are they called? It's like a long set screw. I know there's a name for them. I just can't remember. I found them. Because you know me and my great organization that I have in this place. It's really going to screw me up nice to have to do all this over again because the hobby house is coming down. I'm currently waiting for some engineering plans. I did make a floor plan myself, but you know, it's kind of like Fisher Price, my first floor plan, to tell you the truth. I am not a, what are those guys called? Architect. I'm not an architect. So I hired an architect. He's going to get the engineering plans done. We got to get an engineering lot plan done as well so that he can scale them to the lot, because the lot is only 60 feet wide. It's not very wide at all, but it's 220 feet deep. And since it is not very wide, it is very difficult to get a house on it that actually works and fits and has all the right setbacks and all those rules that the city says we need to abide by. Get off my lawn. Technically, get off my lawn. Got to make sure that I don't have lawn too close to the street, nor too far away from the street, nor too high. I think they have a 10-inch rule in this town. Can't have your lawn higher than 10 inches, which is why I've replaced most of it with tall grasses that are considered Missouri natives. And with a Missouri native, well, those grasses are 8 feet tall. You can't see the weeds inside them. Kind of nice. But don't tell the city that. There's no weeds in it. Of course, it's all native plants. Every single bit of it. In reality, it is actually almost all native plants. And the beauty of having really tall grass is that it does actually choke out about everything. There's not much that can survive next to a thicket of tall grass. Combination of big blue stem, fox sedge, some cloud 9, and I think it's called Cerex cordgrass, regular old cordgrass, boring old prairie grass. It's good stuff though. All right, we're gonna get this carpal tunnel done at any moment now. Totally should have brought power driver.
What kind of lathe do you use for cutting comms?
What kind of lathe do we use for cutting comms? Are you mic'd up so that you can ask in? Okay, okay. My camera guy's gonna try to mic up so he can ask questions and then I don't have to repeat them.
Just shouting over you.
Yeah, let's see. So back to the question, what kind of lathe do we use? We have a whole fleet of them, actually. There's a few entities for very light duty use. We have some Hootie lathes, we have some Phantom lathes, we have some Cobra lathes. I think that covers all of them, but there's a lot. There is literally a whole fleet of them. We have them set up for different lengths of armatures. You know, even the Integy lathes, honestly, they're not that bad to get set up once they're set up. And they cut fine as long as they're not trying to be too aggressive. And we do use diamond bits from McMaster. Turns out that there is a 1/4-inch diamond bit available in a left hand and a right hand. So we've been doing that. All right, we're gonna make sure that my depth is equal on these.
You know anything about micro crawlers? Got any ESC for them?
Micro crawlers. Well, we don't exactly have an ESC for them right now. You could use our mini ESC, the Crawlmaster Mini. Certainly could. However, we do have essentially a winch ESC that will be delivered here shortly, within the next week or so. And that ESC actually could be used in micro crawlers. It doesn't have quite as good of a low-speed startup as the Crawlmaster does, but we're working on tuning the gate drivers to help out with that. It's really just a tuning issue more than anything else. All right, let's see how these upper links sit. It seems like these upper links are a little bit long. I wonder if these upper links are designed with a link riser. Let's check it out. I think I have a link riser in here. I should. If I don't, I could steal it off of a different vehicle. The link riser from Super Shafty is what I'm referring to here. Maybe.
The Crawlmaster Mini RCRs.
Yes, the Crawlmaster Minis. I'm assuming you're asking when they're going to be in stock again.
It's an ETA question.
Yes. So We have a few left, but I'm holding them back for warranty purposes because it's always good to, have that. And I'm trying to get the next batch made. As I said in a previous video, they told me that 10,000 of our ICs were delivered because I ordered them so that we would have them in time to make them again. They were supposed to be delivered 2 months ago. They were not. They were delivered a few weeks ago, and when I pressed them to make the ESCs, of course, they weren't actually delivered, and it's going to be 2 more months. So we are looking at either a combination of switching the IC to one that is available for the short term. It's the same one, it just doesn't have as much voltage range. You may have seen on the internet that I asked if you ever use 2S LiPo, and that was really why I was asking. And so I hope to say 2 months or less. I did everything in my power to try to keep them in stock, and it still wasn't enough, unfortunately. So we will see when. I am currently working with no less than 3 different manufacturers attempting to keep ESCs on the shelves. One of them being Castle, and of course they are having their own problems with sourcing parts. So as soon as possible, we want to have them for you, obviously. It's kind of hard to run a business making crawler parts if you don't have the crawler parts. So ASAP, that's about the best I can give you right now. Is as soon as possible we will have them. So I hope that works out. All right, I am going to steal, maybe I'm going to steal. Can't get to that unless I can find my T-wrench. Here's a T-wrench. So we're just gonna see what's up with that. Oh, and I installed these backwards. We will fix that. Well, I do appreciate everybody that supported the Crawlmaster Mini project. I know it is not easy sticking your neck out for a new ESC. I appreciate everybody that has, and it seems that everybody really enjoys it. I have pretty much finished the new firmware. I call it 1.7 because that's what it is on our end, but you will see it as 1.2. We have uploaded 1.1 to our website. If you want to upgrade to have the thermal rollback be changed, you can upgrade it yourself right now with 1.1. And the 1.2 is going to make it where you can tune it with the AM32 software, and it also will give us the ability to run on higher voltages with higher kV motors. As a matter of fact, this guy is currently running the 1.2 firmware, 1.70 on my side, and running it on 3S and 4S with the 2250 kV team spec motor. And not only did it make it run cooler with that, it also, well, it made it run cooler. This is the best way to put it. It is not quite as smooth, but that is on the hardware that I'm testing, because I'm also testing, along with firmware, I'm testing different hardware. And it's not quite as smooth as the regular Crawlmaster hardware, but we're going to have to figure that out. That's on our end. Y'all probably won't see any of that. But the 1.2, I'm going to try to upload that to the website. Well, I was shooting for this week. Haven't quite gotten there. The goal, though, that was the goal. But it's really smooth. It does need just a teeny bit of tuning. But once you have it, you'll be able to do that anyways. So it's no big deal. Not a big deal. All right.
Hey, we got a question about the hoodies.
Question about some hoodies.
Yeah, you gonna have any hoodies?
Yes, we need to make some more hoodies. We should definitely make them. So, indeed. We also need to make more t-shirts. Let me know if you would be okay buying hoodies from Teespring, because I could upload a new design a little bit easier and quicker on that. I think the prices are probably going to be about the same as what we can offer. So let me know if that works for you, because that may be what we have to do short term.
What about throttle curves? Can you explain throttle curves in relation to punch and power on a brushless, sensorless system?
Yes, they're asking about throttle curves on a brushless system. Specifically, this will be on a Castle, because they're the ones that have throttle curves available. The way that throttle curves work is that when you give a nice slope, as I generally show in all my programming videos, instead of having a linear line from here to here, you have a nice slope to your throttle curve. That actually puts more points of resolution down low. You will lose some of your fine control up high, but in the crawler, that really doesn't matter. If you have a really fast vehicle, that actually could make it harder to control your vehicle. If you have so much power above 50% throttle that it wants to break wheels, then it may not work out so well for you. But in a crawler, we don't need that upper end resolution. We want that low end startup resolution. So when you give that curve, it puts more points of throttle, or we could say that there is less voltage difference in between each discrete point of throttle. And this gives you more control and actually better startup on a Castle system. Versus not using a throttle curve, there is a quite distinct change to the low end resolution. So I would always suggest, if using a Castle system or a Castle-based ESC like the Holmes Hobbies Torque Master, that you would use, I would always suggest that you end up using a throttle curve. Punch control. Punch control, it will affect how fast that the throttle will ramp up. With a modern system, with a modern brushless system, the ESC and let's see, how do I put this? The ESC and the motor resistance is so low that you can actually ask for too much from your battery, and that will cause brownouts. No good, no good. So what we generally recommend is a 30% punch control on everything. That way you are less likely to have brownouts. And it really just softens the hit of the motor. It doesn't let the motor ask for all the amps that it possibly could. And that makes the batteries a little bit happier. A lot happier, actually. So, I always recommend some. It's good for bashers. It's good for pretty much everything. You can also use that as a sort of launch control, although there are fancier ways of doing that. There's torque limiting and some other software features with Castle as well. But punch control is a pretty good way if you wanted to soften the hit, if you wanted to make it where it's a little bit easier to control off of a launch. Punch control will do it. And let's see, what was the other one? There was one more thing that he had asked.
He said, explain throttle curves and the relation of punch and power on a brushless, sensorless system.
Punch and power. I'm just going to talk about power in the general terms of power. When you increase the punch control, you actually do reduce your power. But if your batteries can't supply that power, then what's it worth to you to be able to pull 200 amps instead of 120 amps if you either don't have traction or if your battery can't provide it without dumping? So that's kind of the rub and why you would use punch control. That is why it is useful to have, just to keep your battery from dumping and everything getting out of whack. If you grab the throttle on a sensorless system and it goes and then takes off, that's when you know you needed some punch control. That is when you know. All right, so slowly getting this together. Obviously, my lower links are too short or my upper links are too long, but we're just going to roll with it for now. I'm just going to call it good. We're going to start bolting stuff together. Easier to get it bolted together and then swap out parts down the road than to search through my piles and piles of stuff to find the upper link mounts that I think I need for this. That's all right. Maybe I just need to order a couple more. That's fine too.
Scott says he has one of your 2700 kV stubbies.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to shorten the original leads for a tidier build. Mm-hmm. Is there a preferred or desired length, and is there a voltage drop on the standard lengths?
Yeah, so Scott is asking if he can shorten his wires on a Polar Pro stubby. There is absolutely no problem in doing that. The shorter the better, actually. We give them nice and long so that you don't have too short of wires, because it's a lot harder to lengthen a wire than it is to shorten a wire. If you don't have a big old fatty soldering iron, what I'd recommend is you actually take the bullets off, chop your leads down, and shorten them on the bullet side, because if you don't have enough thermal mass of your soldering iron, it is really difficult to solder on these tabs. Even the V1. The V1 doesn't have quite as much as the V2 as far as thermal mass is concerned. If we can do to an up-close shot on this camera here, I can actually show you what it looks like when there is a poor soldering job. All right, a nice up close here. Come on, focus, focus. There we go. So maybe, here we are. So maybe you can see on here, this was a cold soldering job. Barely had enough heat. I was using an iron that had a small tip. I was borrowing a friend's. I had to turn it all the way up to get it to work. And on top of that, there was no silver in the solder. It was lead-free solder and silver-free solder, which is generally just a terrible, terrible mess to use. And I ended up, you could call it cracking the solder. And it was just a terrible job, enough that it makes me want to heat it up right now and redo it. But I'm not using this motor. So yeah, that is that. I kind of forget what the question was now. Oh yes, shortening the wires. Yes, totally fine. And you can see how short the wires were on this. Here, let's zoom back in. You can see how short I made the wires on this particular setup. Totally fine to do. Totally fine. Woo! That's as close as we go. There we are. All right. Next up on The Price is Right, these screws that I bought tons of from Harley Designs a long time ago.
We got a timing question from Texas.
Timing.
He's got a 3500 kV Puller Pro motor on a Bronco. It's running about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Wants to know, should he reduce the timing from 10 degrees to 0 or drop it by 10 or 9 on his pinion?
All right, we have a question about timing and heat. Running a Puller Pro 3500, running about 160 Fahrenheit, which is on the upper end of what I would recommend for bashing around for sure. He says he is at 10 degrees timing, and honestly, that's a pretty good setting. But if you want to try a lower timing setting in the ESC, go to 0, see how it acts. It may run cooler, it may run warmer. There is typically a sweet spot. And that does depend on a lot of factors such as your gearing. And you did mention gearing. I would actually say your best bet is to first drop down in pinion. Volt up, gear down, or in this case, KV up, gear down. But if you're running this sucker for 45 minutes and you're getting to 160 Fahrenheit, at the end of the run, you're actually fine. As far as heat is concerned, 160 is okay. All of our motors have very high temperature ingredients. So I wouldn't hesitate to continue running at that temperature, honestly. But it's always best to have components run cooler. It is best for the entire system. So yeah, the first thing I would do is actually gear down and see how the system reacts. After that, then I would start changing the timing. If you're spending most of your time in the lower throttle settings, then you may not see a change going from 10 to 0, or you may. If you're spending most of your time in the upper throttle settings, you may actually need to increase your timing a little bit to get cooler runnings. So it is something that you're going to have to play with. It depends on what RPM that the motor is sitting at. It also depends on how Castle handles things. Definitely want to be running in hybrid mode, in the smart mode from Castle. If you're running sensored only, then you can get a really nice decrease in temperature from just going to smart sense mode. Because sensored only mode doesn't really do a good job of commutating at higher speeds. Really not made well for that. All right, so it looks like I installed my shocks and my links improperly on this. Let's see, where's that Capra? Where's that Capra? Yeah, shocks are supposed to be on the outside, so we'll change that out real quick. Let's see, 3:05. We got a little bit more time left.
Hey, Scott, got a question for you.
Scott's got a question.
Crawlmaster Mini, significantly better than the Copperhead for a team spec revolver?
That's kind of a loaded question, asking if the Copperhead is better than the Crawlmaster Mini or vice versa. So right now, it may be hard for you to get a hold of one, which could force your hand on your choice. However, as far as noise is concerned, the Copperhead will be considerably noisier. As far as low-speed control is concerned, the Crawlmaster will have a lot better low-speed control. As far as your absolute torque generated, though, and the lack of cogging, the Copperhead's actually going to be better. The startup routine that Castle has is better for producing torque at low RPMs, It is also better as far as the overall efficiency through the entire power band. They are a much more established power company, and they have a lot of expertise in that arena. So really, I would recommend either of them for you. If you can get a Crawlmaster Mini though, then you will enjoy the quiet and smooth startup. If you can get a Copperhead, which can be also a problem right now, you will enjoy a better power factor. You will enjoy better torque production under load, although it depends on your gearing whether or not you would perceive that, I suppose. And you will also enjoy with the Copperhead more universal use. You can use it with brushed motors, you can use it with brushless, with sensorless. And it's also a much more programmable controller right now. So either one's going to be a great choice, honestly. But in my rigs here lately, using a revolver, I've definitely been choosing the Crawlmaster. Of course, it is my own product, so it's made for the things that I want. And a lot of that lately is really good low-speed control, a little bit of velocity loop on the low end to reduce the need for throttle feathering, and a very small size because we're in a crawler. We're not going fast. So there you go. Hope that helps. It's a lot of information for a short question.
David Fout, tip of the hat, $20. He says, you are amazing.
Thanks. Thanks, David. Gave us a little tip there. We really appreciate that. That helps the channel. That'll help us stay afloat, so to speak. And hey, it looks like when I rearranged my rear links and the shock that I actually got, well, okay, the axle's still tilted back a little bit. That's not exactly where I want to see it, but it'll do for now. Ooh, yeah, that's some nice suspension action, though. It's a lot better than it was. I will need to adjust these links a little bit, maybe flip the upper ones around front to back. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
What about that DIY Fusion you were working on? Did you get to test that?
The DIY Fusion, we are looking at one right here on the bench. Yes, definitely got to test that. As a matter of fact, I put my son in charge of one over the weekend. It was with an 1800 kV motor, and let's see, he didn't break it. I gave him no instructions, running on 3S in I believe it was a stock geared Sport TRX4. I'd have to open it up and see if it was stock geared or not. Maybe there's a video that tells me we could look at. At any rate, it ran just fine. It did get pretty hot, but he was running hot laps and doing that thing that kids do with like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, and it didn't smoke anything. So that's really all I was looking for, is could he overheat it? And he was not able to overheat it, even with the worst possible driving habits that I have ever seen. Is yeah, he's 8 though, or is he 8? Third grade. What's third grade? Help me out here. 2013. He's 8, 9, 10. I feel bad now. I should know my kid's age. The years, they go by so fast though. It's
do you answer any pricing questions like Crawlmaster Mini?
Pricing questions. Check the website. I kind of have a hard time remembering all of the pricing because our catalog has gotten so big that, yeah, homeshobbies.com, it has all the latest pricing on that website. So that would be my recommendation. It has everything you need to know because I can't remember anymore. I don't know if I'm just getting to that age, or I used to remember pricings and then we changed pricings, and all the things that I thought that I knew I no longer know. So yeah, just check out the website.
RC Amigos, he gets you. He says the 7-year-old loves to pop the throttle.
Yeah, RC Amigos, you got a 7-year-old, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just bam, bam, bam.
He says his son just wants to throttle everything.
That is how it is with kids. They love that on-off throttle action. And even telling my son, hey, be smooth on the throttle, use your low-speed control, trying to give him that sort of priming to, have him not beat on the car so hard. He still did. It's whatever though. That's why I gave him the rig to test out, because there's nothing better than a child to test the resilience of a rig.
What about a maintenance question? How often should you oil the bearings on a brushless motor?
Maintenance question. How often should we oil the bearings on a brushless motor? That is sort of a loaded question. It depends on if you get it wet or if you get it dirty. If you don't get it dirty, I mean, every like 500 hours or so. If you're averaging about 2 miles an hour on the trail, that's going to be every, what, like 250 miles or so? That's about right. That's about right for most systems. You could alternatively do it, once a season probably, unless you're a really, really heavy user. And in that case, you would more than likely want to do it maybe, what did I just say, once a season? Once a season. Alternatively, once a year. If you're not going 500 miles in a year, then once a year should be plenty. All right. Which side is the threaded hole and which side is the pass-through? There we go.
Lewis has a question for you. He says he has an Axial SCX-10-2. It's a build kit. He bought a V2 revolver, 2040 kV. What type of ESC would you recommend in gearing?
All right, SCX-10-2, looking for ESC recommendation and gearing for a revolver. So the stock gearing is going to be pretty good in an SCX-10-2. I cannot recall if they use 32 pitch or 48 pitch. Most have gone to 32 pitch these days. But generally, without knowing details of a system, we want to say 5-to-1 ratio on your pinion and spur on the transmission or more. But the stock gearing that comes with the rig is generally going to be a safe bet. And for ESC, using a revolver, really going to just repeat myself from what I said on the recommendation of the Copperhead versus the Crawlmaster Mini. If you can get a Crawlmaster Mini, they're fantastic controllers. If you can get a Copperhead, they are also fantastic controllers, just a little bit more noise to deal with. So, be aware of that. Be aware of that. That's something you'll have to contend with. All right, so now I need to figure out which side the 3-link goes on. I don't remember. Let's look at some other 3-link rigs that I have maybe built. No, not on that one. Let's see. Yeah. I think I got it. Be on this side. Good questions, by the way. Great questions. Now we need upper, front upper, FU, light green, FU. I think I just jinxed my cameraman back there. All right. Man, we're going to have a somewhat cohesive rig here in a minute. It's going to be amazing. Just have to install drive shafts or something like that. Oh, yeah, and look at that. The links are proper. Man, look at that sporty lean on the chassis there, the belly. Getting my belly. Yes. It's coming right along. Only a year and a half in the making. Maybe more. I have to go look back at the YouTubes. It's been 2.5 years. That old COVID stuff kind of threw me off my game for understanding what day it is. That is my excuse for why I cannot remember how old my son is. Let's see.
Everybody in the comments seems to think he's 8.
Everybody thinks he's 8. Well, he was born in 2013. So 8 sounds about right, because he would have already had a birthday this year. So I believe y'all. I believe that we are correct for 2013 being 8 years old. 3rd grade, yeah, that's about right. Because that 5th grade, 10 years old, yeah. We worked through it together, just like any team should. All right. You know what I need is a baby wrench that I've never used before. It has been in this kit forever, and hopefully it fits. Yes. No, it doesn't fit. Ah, well, I tried. Back in the tool case you go. I need some needle. I turned off my mic by accident. There it is. Is it bound?
Yep.
Bound again? All right, we're back on. All right, my watch caught the pack.
Drift Gray's got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
He says, if I lower my throttle curve on a Sanwa radio, will my TorqueMaster BR Mini dual throttle curve still respond to the radio?
All right, he's asking if he lowers his throttle curve on a Sanwa radio, will the TorqueMaster ESC still respond? As long as it doesn't screw with your neutral point. That's usually the biggest issue that we can have is neutral point drifting off one way or another when you make these adjustments. I would say more than likely there's not going to be an issue, but if you do on a throttle curve, put it on the ESC first. If you only put it on the radio, you can actually have worse low speed control. I've seen this multiple times. We get feedback with customers that say, hey, my system is twitchy. What's going on, guys? And it's usually because they put a throttle curve on the radio and not on the ESC. So something to be aware of on that. Man, this thing is riding like a... These shocks are too long. I'm going to have to do something about that. That's it could also be that we've got the axle tilted backwards a little bit too. But yeah, it's a start. It's a start. Oh, maybe I could just adjust my rear shocks. You know, that's an option too, I guess.
What about the rift? Mark's asking a question. He says, do you recommend locking diffs on the rift? Locking the center on the kit I'm building and fading locking in the rear as well. He's going to try to underdrive.
Mark is asking about locking the differentials on the rift. And, you know, Mark, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about this because I don't like the rift. Just go tell you a little secret about it. It's not my type of vehicle. However, if I was going to continue working on my rift and not just letting it sit and collect dust after I broke it, then what I would do is definitely lock up the center first. After that, I would ask what kind of driving that I want to do. And if it was mostly, you know, more crawling style stuff, getting off into, let's say, a lot of hill climbs, a lot of off-road, really loose stuff, then I would actually lock up my rear first, leave the front open, and then that way we would have a pretty good positive traction on it. It would be not too unstable whenever you would turn hard into a corner. It wouldn't want to catch on that front wheel as much, at least with the front open diff. But you would still have positive traction on the rear. You'd be able to throw some really nice rooster tails, honestly, and have some good fun with it. So that's what I would do. I would lock up the center and the rear and then go from there. But again, take it with a grain of salt because the Rift is not really my sort of fun rig these days. I like crawling. Really just I guess a crawler at heart. I get these fast rigs every now and then, you know, I'm going to have fun with it, and then I don't. Even the Capra. I took apart the Capra so that I could steal an axle for this guy. Because, the Capra's not bad by any means, but it's also, it needs some work. And instead of throwing in this 3-gear transmission from Vanquish and Super Shafty like I totally was going to do, I got a whole new skid plate, a whole new setup for it, I just stole the axles from it because I needed axles for that one, which means I stole axles from this one, which means I'm stealing axles from this one now to make them all balance out. So, yeah, I'm a crawler. I just don't think that fast stuff is my deal long term. Just not into fast stuff. Every now and then I'll get something fast and play with it for like 10 minutes and I'm like, yep. Just confirms.
RC Lovers says Holmes Hobbies is amazing, and he's in Missouri Scalers. Can they get a shout out?
RC Lovers, thanks for the shout out, or I'm going to shout out Missouri Scalers. It's a pretty good group. We have a Facebook group and pretty much weekly meetups all over the state. It's really nice to see a solid group of guys coming back together. Pretty much been weekly out at Capon here in Columbia, from what I hear. I met with them this past week. It was a good time. We went out crawling for a couple hours and tried to have my son break some parts. So, yeah, good to hear from you. Appreciate the support. And we are getting close to time to go here, and we're getting close to actually having this thing together, which is awesome.
You working on any new startup sounds?
We're working on some new startup sounds right now. Give a little listen. I can't believe it. It finally worked. I've been working so hard on this thing, and you just gotta listen to this new system sound.
I think we had some trouble with that. We're gonna try this one more.
I can't believe it. It finally worked. I've been working so hard on this thing, and you just gotta listen to this new system sound.
That should have gone through. You got it, now you're back.
So what y'all think of that new startup routine that we've been working on? Hopefully that went through on your side, because, yeah, good times, good times. You'll have to let me know in the comments how that went. That's one of the few perks of being able to be on the internet these days is good old Rick Astley.
Philip's never going to give you up, he said.
Oh, Philip's not going to give us up. I appreciate that, Philip. I appreciate that. All right, we almost have a roller here. I feel like there's so much clearance underneath, though. That this rear axle should be like down here. I'm going to have to ask some experts on what the best course of action is. Maybe I got too long of shocks. Maybe I don't have too long of shocks. Hey, maybe, just maybe, I could look for another pair of shocks in here and see. Well, these look a whole bunch shorter. These are completely different shocks. These are completely different shocks.
You seem shocked.
I'm shocked. Well, maybe that's my problem. I will definitely need something different for my standoffs. Ooh, I could steal the standoffs from the Capra. Indeed.
Speaking of, Creepy Crawler says he's building a Capra Axle Sporty. What ESC motor combo would you recommend? And he needs a stubby motor.
Creepy Crawler. He is also building a Sporty with Capra axles. What would I recommend? So if you're looking for brushless, then definitely a Revolver. You could go with a Revolver S or the Team Spec. I believe we still have some Team Specs in stock right now. If we don't, you can go with the regular old Revolver S. It is still incredibly light. It is lighter than any other choices in the same sort of power range. And yeah, as far as ESC, once again, we're at the same impasse here. I would say going to be between a Crawlmaster Mini and a, let's see, well, you could go with something like a Sidewinder Micro 2, I believe they're called. That one's a pretty good choice. Nice and small. Or you can go with a Micro X. Those are also pretty good choices. It's a pretty good provision. Yeah, hard to go wrong with most of the ESCs available today. So, yeah. Yeah. All right, where did that go? Where'd my ball tool go? My ball squeezer? Need to blow some balls out of these shocks here. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I just had it. Where did I throw it? I threw it somewhere. Over here? Over there? On my bench? On your bench? What did I do with it? The joys of having exquisitely organized areas. What did I do with it? I just had it in the last video. I was using it a bunch. what did I set it down behind myself? If you see my ball pliers, you let me know in the comments on where they could possibly be. I think I might have thrown them in a bin. I did something with them. I know they can't have gone far. Ah, this will go back up here though. Well, it seems that we are at an impasse because they are not in my tool bin where I would normally put them. But my voice is getting hoarse and we have other things to do. So it is
We got 2 questions up.
time to give it up after we go through 2 more questions. So
well, Troy just wants to let you know he's checking in from the toilet at work. So not really a question.
Troy's checking in from the toilet at work.
And
Awesome, Troy.
does have a question. He says, does the motor test on the Mamba X only work for sensorless? Because he tried it with his 28.5 kV and it won't even let him enable to perform a motor test.
All right. The question was about the motor test on the Castle. Does it only work with sensorless or does it work with sensored? I thought that it would work with sensored as well. However, if you want to do the test in a sensorless mode, you can do that, plug your sensor back in and go into Smart Sense mode, and it should still work the same, and you will get the torque limiting function on there. The torque limiting function is really about the only thing that I would say is useful. Sometimes on some setups you can get a little bit better startup control using that torque function. So give it a shot. If we're talking about a crawler, then maybe it'll be worth it for you. But at the end of the day, there is a limit on how good a startup you can get with that particular motor, because that sounds like you're using a Slate. And the Slate, it doesn't have the best startup. It's certainly not bad, but it's also not the best. So there we go. And on that note, I believe it's time to call it. My voice is starting to hurt a little bit from all the talking. One last one, my cameraman says. Okay, psych, one last one.
Would the Crawlmaster Mini be a good match for the Puller Pro V2, 2200 kV?
Crawlmaster Mini combined with a Puller Pro V2. Since the Puller Pro is a sensored motor, I actually would not recommend it because it is also 4-pole. Your startup is not going to be as good as it would be if you pair that ESC with a higher pole count motor, nor is the startup going to be as good as if you would use a sensored ESC, which technically the Crawlmaster Mini does have sensored in it, but we haven't gotten it to be really smooth startup yet. So at this juncture, I would say with the Puller Pro that you should use something like a Copperhead or similar sensored ESC from Castle. All right, for real this time. We're going to cut it. We're going to cut it there. So I do thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully this was enjoyable for you as it was for me, getting to wrench a little bit and BS a little bit about life. Which, speaking of, we've got a really fun video coming up soon about the meaning of life. Hope y'all enjoy that one. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a good day. I can't believe it. It finally worked. I've been working so hard on this thing, and you just gotta listen to this new system sound.